Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to work on our top 5 tips for painting a rose. Alright, tip number 1. I'm going to be using charcoal to draw an envelope of the rose, essentially just figuring out the borders and the general outline. I'm going for like 80 to 90% accuracy. It's important to take your time on the drawing because the closer you are in your accuracy, the more efficient you can move later in applying your values. I'm just using this Q-tip to move the vine charcoal around. Vine charcoal is very easily dusted off. A Q-tip works just as well as an eraser. Tip number 2, pre-mix your colors in a gradient. So we're going to go from our lightest light to our darkest dark, but just within that rose. In order to gauge values, I squint. You also need to be aware of what the color temperature of the light is. So in this case, when I squint, I am seeing a warm light on the light side. Therefore, the shadow side is going to be cooler. Hey, make sure you subscribe and like, and make sure to ring the bell. I'm going to be coming out with videos every single week. So if you're learning something from these videos, you're going to want to see the ones coming out. I am planning for some really cool videos that I'm not going to talk about yet, but make sure you like and subscribe so you can see those. Okay, back to the video. So I'm going to start out by pre-mixing my lights, and I'm just going to add a touch of cadmium yellow pale. So I'm just going to pre-mix all of that in there, and it should just be a little off-white, almost approaching a Naples yellow. I'm going to go over to the darkest dark, which needs to be both darker than this light, but cooler or more neutral. So I'm going to start out with a touch of ivory black, which is cool, a touch of ultramarine blue, and so I don't go too cool, I'm going to add a touch of burnt sienna. I'm going for a neutral gray, neutral mixture, so we can see the temperature. To gauge it, I'm just going to add a touch of white. And you know, when I squint in there, I'm actually seeing some green, just a little hint of green. So I just added a touch of turquoise blue. And this is far too dark for our gradient, so I'm just going to take a little bit, put it here, grab my white, mix that in there. I'm going for the dark side of the rose. Not the darkest dark of the rose, but the dark side of the rose. And I can add a little more yellow, a little more green. What's happening is there's a lot of greenery around that rose, so there's light hitting the greenery and bouncing up into the rose and giving it a green reflected light. Now I'm going to take this color and I'm going to mix it halfway in between. So we're going to create a gradient from light to dark, this being my darkest. So I'm going to put a little bit of my dark. I'm going to wipe my knife. I'm going to take the light and we're going to mix it in between. And these are very neutral mixtures, which is okay because we can always adapt later. So your pre-mixtures should be at a gradient from light to dark, but we are not going for 100% accuracy. You're aiming for accurate colors, but you're not going to know the relationships until they're all on the canvas. So you want to be in the ballpark, and as long as your value structure is accurate, the color does not really matter. Aim for the right value, and if you would like to change the color later, it'll be so much easier. Get the value right. Just because your light source is warm does not mean that your shadows are going to be really cool. If you have a warm light source and maybe a yellow light hitting the flowers, in this case these are white, the shadow side is not going to be all the way on the other side of the color wheel and be blue. It's just going to be cooler than your light source. So if you want it to look real, it's important to just neutralize the shadows towards the cool side. It needs to be cooler relative to the lights. Tip number 5, I want you to think of a rose as a sculpture. Your darks push in, your lights pull out. So imagine yourself sculpting the rose and pushing in the petals and pulling them out. You're going to use your premixtures for that gradient to pull and push depending on what area is being lit. So I've got the gradient from the lights to the darks. Now I can pull out with the lights in the dark area and push down with the darks in the light area and just go back and forth. Really, the key to painting is patience. Follow these top 5 tips and the other top 5s in my other videos that you can check out right here. But really, just be patient and compare one thing to the next thing and go step by step and be patient with yourself as you develop your own understanding and your own methodology. I assure you, if you trust this process, you'll be able to paint a rose and you'll be able to paint anything. So what I want you to do is go to the store, pick up a couple roses, and I want you to paint them from life. It's a very difficult subject, but I assure you, just keep practicing and you can do this. So those are 5 top tips for painting roses. There are many other things that we could talk about, but these are the first top 5s of many that will help you with the fundamentals of painting a rose. There are so many niche concepts that are absolutely necessary to understand when painting a rose. So I will definitely be coming out with more videos relating to the rose because I feel like the rose really applies to painting almost any subject. If you can paint a rose well and you can get the proportions right, and the list will go on and on. If you can paint a rose well, you can paint anything well. I'll see you next time.